I'm Paul Grand, CEO of Medtech Innovator. We're an accelerator for medical technology, largest accelerator actually on the planet for healthcare at this point. And we're based here in LA. So that's pretty terrific. We're a global organization, not focused on LA, but I do love LA. And I live in walking distance to UCLA. So it's pretty fantastic. Let me introduce my panelists over here. So I'll go right next to me over here and start off with John Kim. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm John. I've known Paul for a pretty long time now, since his days in the VC world. But I'm currently one of the partners at Alphelion Capital. We do medical devices. We have a couple of funds. One of our funds is working with the American Heart Association, looking at cardiovascular opportunities, brain health, hardcore cardiac, and ancillary opportunities around the cardiovascular system.
And Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Lamb. So I work within Kaiser Permanente. I do evidence-based medicine research. So I work a lot on doing medical technology assessments and part of that decision-making process to decide what kind of technologies we might adopt. I'm not with KP Ventures because some people have asked me that. So just to clarify that. And before that, I did also some work with pharma doing like health economics and outcomes research for a consultancy, a pharma consultancy.
And lastly, but not least, Joe.
Hi, Joe Smith. I'm the Chief Science Officer for Becton Dickinson. I'm a recovering cardiologist, so I have a little bit of that to get over, but an unashamed fan of med devices and medical technology. And I would point out, if you didn't notice, John has a crutch because he hurt himself, and so this might be the slowest moving venture capitalist you're going to see today. And so, just sorry, John, I just gave you away.
If you're looking for funding, it's a good time to grab John.
Right.
You can't get away quickly. Okay. And then we also learned, don't go to Jessica for a check. So, but advice, we can go to Jessica for advice. So my first question for you, and again, the format for today is that I'm going to ask these panelists questions. They're going to hold up these panels. And the panels that they have in front of them have a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So just to get them used to this. So John, you want to lift yours up, make sure you're okay with that. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, good. You guys got that. So I'm going to ask them the questions. They're going to give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down if they agree, if they agree with the question or they disagree. Let's start first with, do you think that the GLP-1s are going to significantly eliminate the need for devices in obesity in the future? Yes or no? You do. Everyone thinks they're going to eliminate the need for devices in the future. Okay, so get out of that business, guys. Let's get out of there in obesity. If you're developing an obesity device, maybe not. How about in... we already talked about heart disease. Well, I'll say it again. Cardiovascular disease. Again, eliminate the need. Are we not going to need stents or all those things anymore? Okay. No, it's not going to eliminate the need. Okay. So heart disease, keep going, guys. What about diabetes? Diabetes? No, we're still going to have diabetes. Okay. What about orthopedics? We're going to need knee replacements and all that stuff anymore? Or are we going to need them, or the GLP-1s, and we're going to eliminate body fat and everything, and all of us are going to have great knees? We don't need them as much anymore. So, okay, we don't have universal answers on that. Wait, I just want to quickly ask Joe. So you think that we're not going to need as much in the orthopedic space?
No. So I thought the question was, is it going to eliminate them? Yeah.
I was saying, is it going to eliminate the need for medical, for a lot of the device innovation in the space? And you were saying, yes, it is going to eliminate the need? No.
No. Wear and tear happens. I mean, we have a panelist here who's,
I know.
His issue is not because of that.
It's not because of body fat, right? Okay. I hope we have some hope in the future for medical device innovation, because otherwise I'm going to need a new career. But all right. So and then the last one. Actually, let's move on from GLP-1. Let's move on to something else. Let's talk about payment. So in healthcare, we have fee-for-service and we have value-based care. So do we think value-based care will be the majority mechanism of payment by 2030 in the U.S.? Will value-based care be the majority mechanism of payment? Do you agree or disagree?
It's for us.
It is for you, right? That's right. That's how you function. John, you don't think so, but Joe does. Why don't you think so, John?
We're America. We want fast. We want efficient. We don't want to be like some of these other countries that takes months and months and months for their care to be delivered, even though it's cheaper. We want service and service right now.
We do want service right now. I agree with that. That's like the consumer industry, right? So do you think, next question, do we think consumer companies like the big tech companies, Amazon, Walmart, are going to be the primary caregivers? Are they going to be Are they going to be a primary source of care for consumers, or let's say the majority by 2030, in the next 6 years? You think people are going to be going to Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy for their primary care? Yes? Significant. Let's just say significant portion of the population. Not entirely, but a significant portion. So it's not going to eliminate Kaiser Permanente. They'll still be around. Okay. Or maybe KP will buy or merge with Best Buy or something like that.
We have some clinics and some targets.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. Do you think, we know that hospitals are not always wonderful, fun places to be. And yet, you talk in the consumer space, I hear all the time from consumer kind of digital investors talking about delighting customers. Do we think hospitals will delight patients and their families by 2030? Will people leave and say that was delightful? That's not okay. It's not good for okay. No offense to anybody in the hospital system here. What about the newer generations though? Like, all of us, we all have phones. I'm doing this on a phone. Our kids all have phones. Are the newer generations going, they like everything on their phone. They want to do everything on their phone. And we already have telehealth and variations of that. But do you think that care, that the way they, actually interact with care is mainly going to be on their phones, maybe already, but let's say by 2030 again? Do you think by 2030, most of their interactions are going to be done first on a phone? Okay. So for those of you who aren't mobile first, let's get on it. It's very important. What about diagnosis? So at-home diagnosis is certainly moving faster. Do we think it's going to be mainstream by 2030 that most diagnosis will be at home? I'll just throw out a plug for one of our companies. Tasso makes a blood collection device. You don't have to go to LabCorp anymore. You throw a thing on your arm, it comes in the mail and it draws your blood and you mail it back. Do you think we're going to be diagnosing pretty much at the home as our majority by 2030? Or are we still going to be going into the clinic for that? What do you think? At home by the majority by 2030? Do we have a universal? You do think we are going to, Joe?
I want to leave the door open for it because it's clearly what people want. I mean, when you ask people why do they go to a hospital, there's only one reason: they have to. And so I think the expectation from the younger generation is no, I want to disintermediate the hospital and the doc. I just want to get my diagnostics and I want Amazon to deliver my therapy and be done.
Okay. And Becton Dickinson's working on it.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Not
all right,
not,
so let's. That's not a yes or no question. What about just hospitals in general? A hospital at home is definitely a trend, right? I hear it all the time. All these innovators are pitching us on hospital at home technologies. Would you say that today hospitals, broadly speaking, are adopting hospital at home or health systems?
Broadly, no. But
broadly, no. But
we are doing it.
You're doing it. That's right, KP. And John, you said they are broadly doing it already?
They're trying to.
They're trying to?
Because the incentives are there now. You have RPM codes, you have telemedicine, you have, through COVID brought the tsunami of at-home care, and people got used to it. And so now they're getting more familiar with it. There's going to be a hybrid. And then the incentives is for the hospitals to move completely as much of their care to the home as possible.
Joe's shaking his head. What do you say?
Yeah, payment's not there, right? So there's a waiver right now, Medicare waiver that expires at the end of 2024. And so there's, of the 6,000 U.S. hospitals, 310 have hospital at home programs.
310. All right, there's a lot more room for innovation. What about RPM? You mentioned remote patient monitoring. Is that cost effective right now? Is it cost effective to monitor patients at home?
cost effective to the medtech company, or cost effective to
To
the patient, or to the payer?
let's
or
say to the
hospital?
payers. Let's say the people who write the checks. I mean, is RPM being widely adopted because payers love it, and are they driving that? No. John can't make it. He's halfway. No, RPM is not cost effective yet, so keep working on that, guys. All right, let's talk about your organizations for a second. So, in terms of treatment of disease and prevention, would you say your organizations individually, each of you could do it all at the same time, but is your organization more focused on prevention of disease versus treatment of disease? More in prevention. Prevention. Is in your organization?
Diagnosis and treatment. Yeah.
Diagnosis and treatment. And John? Both. I mean, as an investor, you're focused. I mean, do you like investing more in treatment of disease or prevention? Or do you have a thesis around that?
Treatment gets you the higher reimbursement than the prevention, but I like both.
All right. Well, as you said, this is it's an economy. As long as we're for profit. Okay. What about consumer trust? So right now, I all the time I go on the internet to look stuff up, and I know others do too. Do you think consumers by 2030, maybe I'm going to change it now. Do you think consumers are more influenced by influencers on things like Instagram and TikTok and all that about their healthcare than they are by their doctor, by their primary care physician? Are they more influenced by social media influencers today already than their doctor?
Younger people are.
Younger people are. They all agree. Wow. Okay. That's pretty crazy. But it's but it's true. So they literally are, right? Like they trust these influencers more than they trust doctors, right? That's what we're all saying, basically. That is crazy. What about AI? We haven't talked about AI today at all, right? I'm kidding. I think the whole conference has been about AI. So let's talk about AI. Will consumers, I asked already about helpful influencers, will consumers trust, or actually, do they already trust AI and let's say the internet more than they do their doctor? Do they think AI and the internet is more? No, they don't trust it more. What about just as their go-to source for information? So is the internet and Chat GPT and stuff already? It's already okay. That's important. So again, think about that. What about you personally? You personally, is the internet and Chat GPT and stuff like that your go-to source for health information, or do you there's some physicians here on the panels and care providers? It's still. What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, I think it's a go-to source for information. I don't actually go to Chat GPT very much myself. But
no. What do you go to? Do you have
I mean, I just Google. I'm just old school.
Just Google, old school. Okay, that won't last for much longer. John, what about you?
Bing and Copilot is actually pretty good because it provides you a list of the sources that they're kind of incorporating.
They cite the sources, but it's still using OpenAI and Chat, the same stuff, right? Behind the scenes.
Yeah. So
they just cite it.
It's good, but you always want to re-verify it. But it's a good way to really quickly get to your sources and verify and make your diagnosis.
Okay. Well, how about in your jobs, your daily jobs? Do you use AI at this point, like a Chat GPT, let's say, on a daily basis? Joe is a yes. John is a yes. And Jessica's still old school on Google. All right. What do they say about people whose jobs will be replaced by AI? Or it's not them, but it's the people who use AI who were taking. Yeah, Jesse, you got to get on this.
No, well, we were told not to. KP basically told us not to use these tools.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay.
You have a personal computer, though, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's some things I've played around with, but I haven't like.
You're not daily using.
Yeah, I haven't integrated into my daily process.
Yeah, but John, you're using it every day. Is that what you said?
Yeah, in the hospital.
In the hospital, how
are
you using it every day?
You can look up drug dosing very quickly, even faster than some of these other like Micromedics and things like that. And it gives you a lot of the sources. It's getting better and faster. So, I mean, all these other sources that we typically have been trained to use, they're getting slower in comparison to what it's doing. And now with like Nuance, and we're putting all of our notes, by speech, they're automatically going to be seeing all this because Microsoft and Microsoft Teams owns every single hospital, and the user interface, it's already building in this ecosystem of having Copilot, Nuance, Dragon Speech, and it's all going to be integrated, and your notes are going to be all tied in together with Copilot. So that's basically happening already. So
we don't have Copilot yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But do you use Teams in Microsoft at KP?
Yeah,
you do?
yeah. KP does use Microsoft for everything now. Mm-hmm.
So does Microsoft own all the hospitals really at this point? Like in terms of penetration, like they've got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. So if you saw a startup, we had one last year, you saw a startup come in and say, hey, we got a new note-taking app for doctors that's going to, take their notes and transcribe. Would you invest in that?
Well,
Yes or
KP
no?
is actually, they are piloting a couple of those.
Okay. Even though Microsoft has
Yeah.
all that
Well,
stuff
for
built in.
it's like the ambient listening. Yeah. So
Okay.
I know there's a
Okay, so there's
pilot.
still room for innovation.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. All right. What about we again, the U.S. is just notoriously terrible in terms of statistics like mortality, lifespan, and so on. Well, I guess those are the same thing. But in general, the U.S. is just ranks at the bottom of the list, right? Like in terms of high income nations and everything. Do we think AI is going to put the U.S. in the top 10 at least in the next 5 years? By 2030, is AI going to finally put the U.S. Is it going to fix all this? No. Okay. AI is not going to fix everything. Okay. Didn't we have a panel today called "It's Not a Magic Bullet"? All right. So I guess you guys agree with that. That's good. What about, are there more important things than AI that we should be focusing on right now? Or should we literally, I'm not kidding, like, should we all be just stopping what we're doing and just focusing on how to integrate AI and ML into everything we're doing? Or are there more important things? Should we be, are there more important things?
AI ML is good for profit. It makes the hospital payers more profitable. If you really want to reduce or improve outcome, and focus upon outcomes based, it should be somewhat more focused upon social determinants of health, like drug addiction. I see the same patient, literally like 5% of my patients I see in the hospital, they're the same patients that come in every other week, just completely zonked out of it. And if we could get them wrapped around with services that try to prevent them from coming back in, that would save about 50% of your healthcare costs just right there, because they just eat up such a significant part of our hospital bills. And so, yeah, AI is great. It makes the hospital more profitable. We can fire more FTEs and techs and maybe make the nurses and the physicians a little bit more efficient, but there'll be more people coming in. But unless we focus upon the social determinants of health and focus upon what's actually driving costs of the hospital and improving outcomes, our actual, as you see over the last several years, the national mortality rate for patients within like 18 to 35 is actually increasing. So unless we get a hold of that, nothing's really going to change.
AI is not going to fix
AI
that.
is going to just make us more money for the hospital and the payer.
Make us more efficient. All right. And anything else? Does anybody else want to weigh in on just something else that we should be focused on besides AI? Is there something else that's besides SDOH that's really critical?
So AI can be used to solve some of the problems about prospective patient identification, keeping people well, dispersing healthcare resources where they're most needed to blunt the dramatic spend that we do. But if it's all deployed in hospitals, it's too late. It's that's improving the efficiency of a steam engine when we really need a jet, right? So there's different model of healthcare delivery that we have to embrace than the one we have right now.
For sure. Yep. Agreed. Okay. So what about, let's do a couple more on AI and then I'll move on. In terms of AI, should we be letting AI making decisions about who receives care? No, Jessica doesn't like that. Joe's not sure.
So maybe. Yeah, so it's all about how biased is the algorithm, because if you really tried to optimize over spend and get a healthier population, you're going to need tools like AI to do that.
Yeah, we use AI for predictive analytics, and it definitely helps us to optimize like healthcare utilization. During the pandemic, we would know this is how many beds we need, in each of our medical centers, and that's so AI is very important, but I think, I mean, at least for Kaiser, I think in the end, it's we want the physicians to still feel their autonomy, and they, in fact, they call it AI, they call it augmented,
Right.
yeah, they don't say artificial because it's doctors don't want to be replaced, so
No.
so I think you still going to have to, they still need to be the decision makers.
Okay. You said, we talked about autonomous there for a second. So, autonomy, the robotics keeps getting, into everything. There's a robot literally for everything these days. Knowing the state of robotics and robotic surgery and technology in general, would you personally let a completely autonomous robot perform surgery on you personally? Like if you had your choice and they said, hey, you can have a robot do a completely autonomous surgery at this point, or you can still have a John Kim or somebody behind the wheel. No?
What's the experience of that robot?
I don't know. I mean, let's find out. Let's see. I mean, fly your plane or any of those things.
Can you sue the robot?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. That's coming though. There's ChatGPT lawyer stuff that you can use. Okay, so not personally. What about but just in general, again on that topic, do we think AI is better than humans at diagnosing disease, like you talked about, going on and dosing and all those kinds of things? Do we think it's better at this point? Like, would you trust an AI enabled radiology read at this point more than you would a human, or what do you think in your experience?
Yes.
Yes, you would. You trust AI more, and Jessica still likes humans. Okay, that's good.
I think it just depends. I mean, it's all that stuff is optimized to a certain area under the curve, and I don't know. It may outperform people most of the time, but it depends on what disease you have.
Okay. What about ethics? So we've when we think about the ethics of in consideration for development of these technologies, do you think ethics is the top concern when it comes to development of AI enabled and AI augmented, medical technologies? That's one. Are we thinking about ethics at in the top 2 or 3 concerns? Yes or no? 2 or 3. Yes. Yes, we are. Ethics are being considered. Okay. Well, I hope you're right.
I don't know if the people developing the models
are doing
it. Yeah.
No, because that's my point. I'm saying is health, is that okay? What about you talked about social determinants of health? How about health equity and access to care? Is that being adequately considered, would you say, today in terms of the development of these AI enabled technologies?
I mean, no. I mean, I think we systemically have bias in the system. So, the models are being trained with that bias. I think that there's an opportunity for the AI to, you can do things to help correct those kind of biases. So I think, but I don't know if that's happening. So.
Okay. Let me move away from AI. It's enough AI. Okay. Let's talk about FDA and regulatory and reimbursement, a couple of things really quickly in the last 4 minutes or so that we have here. So first thing is FDA approval and clearance. Is that enough with a relevant reimbursement code to drive adoption of new innovation today? Is approval and a code enough to drive adoption? No, it's not. What else do we need? What are we missing? What do we need? Evidence?
Proof of clinical economic value.
Okay. So the first 2 are not enough. So if you're investing based on just those 2 things, you guys are suckers. Don't do that. What about real world evidence? So I know you spent a lot of your time in that, Jessica, in particular, in evidence-based medicine. So an FDA, will the FDA use real world evidence as a requirement, let's say in the next 5 years? So by 2030 again, do we think FDA will require real world evidence to either not maybe approve, but keep products on the market? Will it be a condition?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
More and more.
More and more? John's on the fence. No, you don't think so? They're not going to require it? No. Any comment as to why? You just don't think so?
If you do a randomized controlled trial, it's usually like the cutoff, and they're being more proactive as asking companies to provide a randomized controlled trial, even if it's like supposedly previously there were single arm studies. So their cutoffs to try to get approval during the FDA process is getting more stricter. Once it's out of the bag, it's hard to bring it back in unless you have some egregious recall or something really bad happening to the quality of the product, because you've statistically proven it that it's efficacious out in the market by doing the randomized controlled trial. If they say no, or they stipulate, hey, we'll approve it plus registry trial, give us like 3 to 5 years registry trial, we'll keep going at it, then maybe. But right now it's hard to see if something's already approved with a randomized controlled trial, they're going to try to bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's data, I mean, if there's a real world evidence that says this thing just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, there's some safety and adverse event reporting that's happening now, and now that there's more real world evidence sort of being done by the hospitals and hospital systems, and that's feeding directly to the FDA. So I think that can help, to pull things off the market. But I mean, I agree, it's very hard once the cat's out of the bag.
Once the genie's in the bottle. Okay, yeah.
I think Friday they just pulled back a chemotherapeutic drug that was approved based on a randomized controlled trial, and then taken back because subsequent trial failed to show the benefit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it'll become a requirement, but for some things there are some things being approved now just based on real world evidence where they're not getting not having an RCT. And so I think maybe for those things, maybe they would require additional for safety.
Okay. So that's for approval. What about for reimbursement? What about coverage reimbursement? Do we think that RWE is going to be the driver in terms of, how devices are, and diagnostics and all these technologies are reimbursed in the future? Will RWE drive that, or is that going to just be as an RCT and evidence enough?
No, I think materially that's going to do it, because a lot of the approval trials that you get for regulatory approval don't run long enough to give you the data you need for the economic benefit, because that benefit accrues over time. And so oftentimes those trials are stopped. And then what do you use to generate the story around economic value? It'll wind up being real world evidence.
Okay. I think we're almost at time, right? 4:45. Dina's over here. That's what that means. Did you enjoy the panel? Was this fun? Did you guys like that? Was that good? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, guys.